All right, we are live. You guys, good afternoon. This is National Sales Director Leah Lachlan. Welcome to week 2 and hangout number 2 of our Master Your Money's Pacesetters. I feel like we've been together on this journey for like a long time, and I don't know why I feel like that. All the feedback I've been getting and the messages and the posts and the comments, it feels like so much is happening and has happened since we started this program. And it's really an encouragement to me to hear about the aha moments that you're having and the conversations you're having with your husband and the changes that you're making and the realizations that you're having and the benefit that it's been. Like, it's been really, really encouraging for me to hear that. And I just feel like so much has happened since we've started this, which feels really, really good. And so we're going to dive right in because I already feel a little bit behind on our content, and I'm just super committed that between this hangout and next week's hangout that we will we'll finish everything. So let's jump right in this week. And I'm just going to start with a story of how this started for me almost, let's see, 10 years ago. I want to tell you the story that triggered this. And then we're going to really get into like some nitty gritty stuff. So you're going to have to put like your thinking hats and your number hats on, because we're going to really like get into some nitty gritty numbers that are going to support both consultants and directors. And so okay, so way back, let's start way back. Before I started Mary Kay, didn't really consider my financial life a whole lot. I had a couple of things going for me. And let me share what those were. It wasn't a lot, but it was a few. My parents scared me away from using credit cards. So they had, I kind of watched them go in and out of seasons of having credit card debt and then paying it off. And they really just warned me of the misuse of credit cards. And so I didn't get one until I was in college. I remember the first one that I got, I literally, as I was using it, I was like writing a check to send off to the credit card company to like pay it that day. Got it. But I really truly was like anxious. I actually had this like anxiety feeling when I first like swiped a credit card for the first time. And so I did have that going for me and just refused to be caught into that, caught up in that cycle. So I had that going for me. Number 2, job, and I was willing to work hard. Since I was 12 years old, I started babysitting. And from that moment until today, I've always had jobs, and in high school had multiple jobs, and college had multiple jobs because I wanted choices. And I knew that money gave you choices. And like I told you on the hangout last week, I had some girlfriends who just were wealthy and had a lot of choices, and they could do a lot of things that I didn't have the choice to do because my parents couldn't pay for it, but I was willing to work for it. And that's what I always did. When I was 15, I had a job at Dairy Queen, and I also worked at this local grocery store collecting carts. It was one of my very first jobs. I think Dairy Queen came first, and then I transitioned into this grocery store, and I collected carts and I cleaned their toilets. And so I was out in the parking lot collecting carts. To this day, I will never just like leave a grocery store cart out, where I park. I always take it back to the little kiosk or take it back to the store, because I remember doing that. And every time I see like when I go to Kroger now, I'm always like, I respect you for that work ethic and out there in the rain and the heat and the snow collecting carts. And so I always worked and was willing to work hard and just knew that money equaled choices. Okay. And that's what I wanted. I wanted choices. I wanted to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. I had the other thing I had going for me at that time is I did have very low student loan debt because of academic and volleyball scholarships. And so I didn't have a lot of student loan debt graduating, which was good because I went into teaching, which is not a high income. And then Cliff had no student loan debt because his parents paid for him to go to college. And so we had that going for us. And then I did balance my checkbook, and I knew how to do that. I took an economics class in high school and learned how to do that. So those were like the 4 things I had going for me. And you know what? It worked well for us in that season of our lives where we were in college. Cliff and I were in college and dating, and then we graduated, we got married. We didn't make a high income. Um, but those skills and the things I had going for me worked well. We didn't make a lot of money, but we were not in debt besides some student loans that I had, which was pretty minimal. And we lived well below our means, and we didn't get caught up or trapped up into using credit cards to buy things that we really couldn't afford in cash. Um, you what worked well in that season of life was not enough skills to run a Mary Kay business. And I think that's what sometimes can happen, is that the skills you had before Mary Kay, when you were just working a job and your financial life was maybe pretty simple, when you transition into having a Mary Kay business, those previous skills won't cut it. You need to like raise your skill level, raise your knowledge and awareness of a lot of things, of taxes, of business expenses, of how to track your income, how to budget. You know, we obviously make commission. That means our income is different every single month. And so you would need a different skill set working with that kind of financial situation with a different income. And so although I had some basic skills that worked for us in that season, it wasn't enough for running a business. Okay, and I want to make that point because a lot of people think, oh, like I was fine in my financial life before Mary Kay, so I'll be fine in with a Mary Kay business, which could be the case, but in most cases, you need to increase your skill set and your level of skills. And so that's why we're doing this, to support you in increasing your skill set. So I started making a six-figure income within like a year and a half of starting my Mary Kay business. So like, boom, it changed our financial situation, like literally like overnight. And so we knew enough at that time to not spend, because that's also what people can start doing, is they'll start Mary Kay or anything else, and like their income increases right away. And that there's expected future income, and people start spending the expected future income before it's received. Okay, so an example of this is a director maybe knows she's going to have a high month in production and a really big month, and she knows a certain paycheck that she's going to get that's high, and so she spends it, either physically or mentally, spends that money. It has actually hit her checking account. And so by the time it has, it's gone because it's already been spent, either on credit cards or commitments that have been made. And so I knew enough to not do that as we started making this big income right away in Mary Kay, I wasn't spending it as fast as it was coming in. And we have always very intentionally lived well below our means and haven't spent everything that comes in. Now, I also knew to start investing it right. I'm not sure where I picked that up or who taught me that, maybe my parents, but we did start investing at a very young age right away as our income increased. Okay, so my very first year as a director, we are in the top director trip at the $650,000 level. The second year, you guys, we really pushed for the million. And when I say we really pushed, I mean like my heart was over the line. I believed it and believed it and believed it until the party bell rang and it was just over and we didn't finish it. And it was also, I wanted to do it like I really, like my heart was in it. And so that can be disappointing, as most of you know, to work really hard on a goal that doesn't come together, that you really just put blood, sweat, and tears into. And so we missed the trip on June 30th. Or I'm sorry, we missed the million, but did the trip. We did the trip again for the second year and did a higher unit club that year than we did the previous year. So all was well, but Pam Shaw, my national sales director at that time, called me on July 1st, kind of out of the blue. She called me. She just wanted to check in and make sure I was, okay after we had missed that big goal. And so we talked for a while and just kind of chit-chatted and talked about the goal and, what happened and what didn't happen. And at the end of the phone call, she said, go pamper yourself for the day. Go get a massage, go relax, just go pamper yourself, take some time for yourself. And so that's her advice to me as we're hanging up the phone. And I remember this moment. It was just this defining moment in my life. Like, it gives me the chills just to think about it right now. My walk-in closet and I had recently bought at that time. And I was standing there and I hung up the phone and I just started crying. Emotion of missing the goal, and I'd probably stayed up till like 3 a.m. that night and probably didn't have much sleep. So I'm sure all of those things triggered that, but her advice to me is what I think triggered the tears. I started crying. And let me try to explain why. I was not raised in a home where money was ever spent on that kind of luxury. Like my mom herself, I never watched her do that. And although these words were never used in my house, things like that were viewed as an unnecessary luxury and just like a frivolous thing to just go pamper yourself or get a massage. I didn't even know what something like that at that point in my life. And I had this question in my mind of whether I could afford it. Although if you looked at our financial situation, we obviously could afford something like that. That is a very relative term. Afford something like that and pay for it in cash, but it was just this uncertainty in my heart and conflicting values. Raised to go do things like that. And then my mentor, who I looked up to and respected, thought that would be the best thing I should do that day. And so it was just this conflicting values. And I just felt really uncertain. I think that prompted the tears. And for whatever reason, God used that comment that Pam made, just go pamper yourself, go get a massage, go relax for the day before you get back to work. God used that comment to bring my uncertainty about our financial situation to the surface. What happened is this uncertainty that I felt in my heart that I wasn't completely aware of came to the surface. And so after my massage that day, because when Pam Shaw tells you to go get a massage, you go get a massage, right? So after that, I came home and I did something I have every single month since then without fail. And that was July 2009, July 1st. So it's going on like 8 years now of this habit. And it was tracking our spending in both our personal accounts, business accounts. And literally that day I printed bank statements from our personal checking, business checking, personal credit card, business credit card, and then any other like accounts, like ProPay, and there were some other accounts where you would have transactions in. And so I printed them and started this Excel spreadsheet that literally, and when I tell you every month, I mean every month since July 1st of 2009, I do this. So I print every bank statement and I track it on this Excel spreadsheet. And so I'm going to get more into detail with that later in this hangout, and then also next week. We are going to really dive into how to do that and what kind of impact that can have on you mentally and emotionally. But I want to keep moving ahead. So that's what I came home and did, because remember, I just felt uncertain. And so the reason I did that is I just needed to get clear, because all I knew at the time is that there was a lot of money coming in and we were doing this and that with it. And we had a lot of choices, but that was really, it was the extent of about our financial situation. We had no short-term goals. We had no long-term goals. I didn't really know what that level of income could mean. I didn't know what I didn't know. It was kind of where I was at. And I didn't like that uncertainty. I really felt uncomfortable with that uncertainty. And for whatever reason, God used Pam's comment to kind of bring that to the surface. So I came home, printed these things, and started this habit, which we'll go more into later. And so I didn't realize in that moment on July 1st, 2009, that I was at this turning point. I was at these crossroads. I didn't realize it at the moment, but looking back, that's absolutely what it was. It was just this turning point and this crossroads in my financial life. And I believe, had I not implemented some skills and habits and books that I read and knowledge, that our financial, if I had not done that at that time, that our financial situation today would look a that it would. And so my whole goal, Pacesetters, is that if you haven't had that crossroads or that turning point in your life related to your financial life, is that you would have some kind of turning point, some kind of crossroads that gets you on a path 10 years from now, and praise God for what you've learned, skills that you've implemented, habits that you've put in place, because it would over time completely change and revolutionize your financial life for the better. And so I hope we're all saying that a year from now, 2 years from now, 50 years from now, that man, that was a turning point. That was a crossroads that put me on this journey that took me to a different place than I would have gone had I not read the book, had I not implemented the tracking. Okay. So just a little side note before I move on, is that, and this is really interesting, I forget where I read this or what book I read this in, but I'm like, yes, that is so true, that your lifestyle will automatically increase with your income without ever feeling like you made the choice to increase your lifestyle or way of living. Your lifestyle will automatically increase with your income. So as your income increases, your lifestyle, meaning what you're spending to just live, which a lot of times is consumer stuff, vacations, clothes, things that we like but we don't maybe necessarily need. So your lifestyle automatically increases as your income increases without ever feeling like you made the choice to increase your lifestyle choices or the way that you're living. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? And so some advice I want to give you is to make big spending decisions and consumer spending decisions very slowly and very cautiously. Place where your income is increasing. You may be in that place right now. You may have been in that place. You may know that you're going to that place. And so make spending decisions, especially big ones, you know, like the house and the car and the vision and the clothes and the things we get. I mean, the list goes on and on. Make those decisions slowly and cautiously. I see a lot of first-time Cadillac sales directors. Okay, that's kind of a level in Mary Kay where you see a big increase in your income. First time you're earning that Cadillac, a lot of them buy a new house right away, or get stuff way too quickly, or change their way of living, or overcommit their money, or spend expected income, like, oh, this month is going to be a big paycheck, so let me do this, this, and this with it. And those things have already been committed to or put on a credit card before the income even hits their checking account. I see people do that way too quickly. Like, yay, I'm making more money, let's spend it. And it's like a race to zero. And you're on this race to just like making happen a lot. Another pitfall that can happen when you start making a bigger income, maybe fairly quickly, is not setting aside money for taxes. And I've done that. I've done that as a new director, forgetting that, wait, they don't tax my income right away. Like at a normal job, you know, at a normal job, you get the paycheck stub. Money already came out of the check because they tax your price and the federal government. And so then in Mary Kay, they don't do that, which I think is to our advantage, because guess what? We get to keep that money all year and invest it versus the IRS having it and them investing it. I'd rather invest my money and let it grow and then pay them at the end of the year versus them having my money all year and investing it themselves and letting them have my money to grow, for their, let the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest, work in their favor. I'd rather it work in my favor. And so we're not taxed, you guys, on our income. Money aside. And guys, I've seen it happen where you have a tax bill at the end of the year and you kind of like blame Mary Kay, or like resent Mary Kay, like, oh, if I didn't have this Mary Kay business, I wouldn't have this big tax bill. Well, let's be clear, like that was your choice. And the rest of America pays taxes. And so should we. Okay, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So it's not Mary Kay's fault. We're taxed on our income, reality of living in this country. And so setting money aside every month for that and getting solid, sound advice from a financial advisor or CPA is going to be important. Okay, so remember your old skill set. You didn't need to know about taxes when you had your old job. When I had my teaching job, they just took it right off the top. That. But now you need a new skill set. You need more knowledge about taxes now that you have your own business. And so yeah, we're going to do that. We're talking more about taxes next week. Mary Kay's fault when you didn't set money aside for your taxes, okay? Let's take personal responsibility for that. Also, there's just a prioritization. There's an order that things need to happen in financially. Because I think a lot of people can hear information like this and just assume that having nicer things is bad or wrong. I used to kind of have that way of thinking years ago. And I don't want anybody to ever hear me say that. There's just an order things need to happen in. I think I touched on this a little bit last week, and there's a prioritization that needs to happen. I feel like Dave Ramsey lays this out the best with his, nobody else gives like steps like he does. And those were the videos that you guys watched this week that are in the pinned post, that like you get the $1,000 emergency fund first, and then you do this, and then you do that. So there's an order things should be happening in. And so buying new houses, new cars, expensive furniture, vacations, any of those things before paying off your debt can just not be an option anymore. It's just the wrong order to do it in. You can eventually have those things when you have the cash to pay for them. But to make choices like that when your income increases, and to use that increased income on consumer spending or credit card debt when you already had existing debt, is just stupid. It's just freaking stupid. And so let's say no to those things, get rid of the debt, then you can start saying yes to some of these other things. Okay, so let's not fall into that trap of like, oh, I'm making more money in Mary Kay, so now we can go on this vacation. Yay! Oh yeah, I have $40,000 in credit card debt. Oh, forget about that. I'm making more money in Mary Kay, so vacation. Yay! No, you tackle the credit card debt first. That's got to happen first. Then you go on the vacation. You have no business taking a vacation or having these luxuries. First step of getting debt free. Besides your mortgage, of course. That's later on in the steps, okay? And I'm saying these things really nicely. I appreciate Dave Ramsey because he doesn't say it as nice. Some of his videos, I'm like, whew, okay, got it. Check. He can really bring the heat. And I appreciate that because we have to hear that. We really have to hear the importance of it, and we have to hear it in a strong way. It's not like, well, you should probably get out of debt. It's like, no, freaking get out of debt first. The gazelle video, you guys, I know some of you have commented on it, but that gazelle intensity that he talks about, how he'll have some callers call into his radio program and say, like, well, I've been kind of thinking about getting out of debt. I don't know. I just don't have that like intensity, that heart, that commitment. And then other people call in and they're like, oh, I'm freaking getting out of debt. I see even you can relate that gazelle intensity to your Mary Kay consultants and directors who are like, yeah, well, I'll try. If it works out, I'm going to do this and that. And yeah. And then you talk to people who are like, Like, I am doing it. Like, it is done. And I'll work until it's done. And I'm committed. And you can tell there's just this like level of intensity, curious about the choices they're making and where they want to go. So it's the same with being in debt. It's the same with working on your Mary Kay goals, that gazelle intensity about your life and your choices and your work and your belief that you can do it and that it can happen. And so we've got to have that about getting out of debt first before we take some of these next steps in our financial lives. I do have a disclaimer that I should have made already, is that I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax accountant. I don't know tax law very well. And so any like really higher level questions like that, just don't ask me, okay? Don't message me, don't box me those questions. I don't know what kind of tax return you're getting. I cannot answer any like expert level type questions, okay? I'm just equipping you with how you can equip yourself. You can equip yourself to be successful in life in your Mary Kay business. But I am not an expert. I'm only learning from these people so I can maybe pass on and filter the information to you. But please don't box me about your taxes, okay? Are we clear? Okay, so this is another thing I wanted to cover last week that we didn't get to. By the way, I have a standing desk, and this is just a little side note. Best decision I ever made to get a standing desk. I can sit and stand. I just push a button. They say that it's new smoking, and that a lot of people sit too long, and it's bad for your circulation and just for in your back and your neck, and it can create all kinds of problems. And so get a standing desk. It's a good investment after you've paid off all your debt. Okay, so on page 15 of your workbook, it kind of asks like, well, it breaks down some things that I want to go over. And I kind of want to ask the question of like, okay, where are you at? Where are you at? And how clear are you on where you're at right now, just in your financial? And the first category on that page 15 is what I'm referring to. And what I ask you to do on that page is to actually circle or identify what level you're currently at. Because before we can know where we want to go or where we're going, we just got to take a really clear picture of where we're even at right now, what our current reality is. And so there are 6 levels of financial health. This is from Ron Blue's book, Master Your Money. He identifies these levels in that book. So the first level is just struggling. So you're in debt, and not only in debt, but there just doesn't seem to be a way out, and you just have little to no choices in your life, and it seems impossible. You're paying one bill but leaving many others unpaid, and you just feel stuck. And so if you are struggling, it's important to just identify that and deal with the reality of that. But also have hope and be encouraged that it's not forever. It may be right now. And I realize it may be hard right now, and there's hardship in that level, but it doesn't have to be forever. It absolutely doesn't. There is a way out. There is a bright future ahead of you. There is hope. Okay, so be encouraged and just start taking those baby steps. It will lead you somewhere. And this is a journey. So you're starting here, but you are going somewhere on this journey. And I just pray that you get on a path and stay on a path, that in 5 years you look back and say, thank God I got on that path. Thank God I moved from the struggling level to up a level or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, so level 2 is surviving. Surviving is like paycheck to paycheck. Some months are maybe a little bit better than others, but there's no money going towards building margin. Okay, margin is just a savings account and investments. And so you're surviving. It's not hopeless. Some months are better than others, but there's nothing extra. So maybe you're paying all your bills. Maybe you're not going into debt every month, but there's just not that extra that's building security in a future. 3 is stable. You have enough cash flow to cover your expenses. You have some choices, not a lot, and you got to say no to some things, but you've got some choices. Sometimes you put money away, but sometimes you can't. But here's kind of the clincher, or the difference maker between level 3 and level 4 is that there really are no short-term or long-term financial goals that you're intentionally working on. And when I had that conversation with Pam, we were probably in between stable and secure. We're probably in between 3 and 4. And the big thing for us at that time was not necessarily a lack of cash flow, it was just a lack of goals. No short-term or long-term financial goals. Nothing we were working on, no vision, nothing we were focused on or being intense about. It was just sort of like, there's our money, and we need to spend it here, here, and here, and then that was the end of the story. So moving to level 4 is secure. You have plenty to cover your expenses, plenty to save and build margin. You're actually in the process of building a lot of margin in your life, which gives you a lot of security. And and this is the big difference maker, you have clear short-term and long-term financial goals, and you're working on them. And you're actually making daily choices to move closer to those short-term and long-term goals. 5, surplus. You have more than enough. You have more than enough. You are debt-free, so doesn't have to be any money going to debt. And you start to really actively give, or at least have the option to give in a significant way. Now, that doesn't mean you don't give when you're at levels 1, 2, 3, or 4, but there's something that starts to change where you can really, really start to look for ways to give and give more, because you have more than enough. And at this level, you start asking the question, how much is enough? And I think we will all eventually have to ask that question, how much is enough? How much is enough? And so Ron Blue really addresses that question really well for believers and for Christians, to really lay that before God and ask how much is enough for us. And if this is enough, what do I do with this extra? And what will glorify and honor God and build his kingdom to do with this extra? So that's surplus. And then 6 is significance. And at the significance level, you have such a surplus that you can really build and make a contribution to the lives of others. Your financial life is no longer about you and your bills and the stuff you can get and the stuff you can have. It truly becomes about other people and creating significance in the lives of others in whatever way you choose to do that. And so what a vision, you guys, what a vision to move towards that level of significance, that like things aren't about you and your bills and what you can have and the things you can get and the things you can buy. It's like, what can I do for other people? Whose life can I change? What legacy can I live? What contribution can I make? Where can I add value? What a vision for us to work towards that. And so let me say that you never get to this level on accident. Just stumble into this significance level of your financial life. It doesn't happen on accident. You don't wander into it. No, you don't get to this level without a lot of hard work. And a lot of hard work just by straight up either getting a job or working your Mary Kay business and making an income. So that kind of hard work. And then additionally, the hard work that it takes to focus on it and to discipline yourself to say no to things right now so you can say yes to a whole lot in the future. And so work hard at your business, your job, get multiple jobs, have a work ethic to spare, and then work hard at your financial life so that you can move to a level of significance you're at right now. I truly, truly believe that everybody can get there. I believe we all should get there. I believe we have this, I believe it's a calling to get there so that things can be about other people. And you can model that for your kids and leave that kind of legacy. Most people don't just like get there on accident. You know, some do inherit a lot of money. Some people do win the lottery. Some people do start this crazy startup company and it's an overnight success. So there are those stories of overnight. But most people who get there, it's because of years and years of focused hard work and intentional living and intentional saving and intentional giving. And Dave Ramsey said, he's like, you get rich very, very, very slowly. And rich being defined as net worth. Okay, when we say rich, that means net worth. A lot of people look at people and think that they must be rich because they appear to be rich on the outside or with the things that they own or things that they can do. But it's really about net worth. And your net worth is when you take all of your cash. Okay, so what's in your checking and your savings and your investments, just your assets, which would be the equity in your home or anything that you own outright. So it's taking all of your assets and then subtracting your liabilities. Okay, so your liabilities are just any debt that you have or anything that you owe to someone else. And so you can only count equity in your home as an asset. The rest of it's a liability. And so you take all your assets, subtract your liabilities. That's your net worth. And so I think a lot of people don't know that definition of net worth. And I think we get caught into in America, and The Millionaire Next Door, that book really addresses this, that we look at like what people own and what they have and the vacations they go on and the clothes that they wear and think that that equals a certain level of wealth. But really the opposite is true. Like, what's in their bank account? What cash flow do they have? What debt do they have? And a lot of people are negative. Like their net worth is like nothing because they owe so much compared to the assets that they have. And so you get rich very, very slowly by choices. And so, so those are the levels. So where are you at? Which level would you identify as like the financial level that you're at? And then what choices would it take to just bump up a level? What choices right now would you need to make? What kind of short-term and long-term goals can you set right now to kick it up a notch and start progressing towards the level of significance, which I believe we all can get to. So, okay. Next thing is 5 biblical principles that scripture really address when it comes to your financial life. Ron Blue goes into these a lot, so if you're kind of interested in this and learning more, that'd be a great book to read, is Master Your Money. And number 1 is spend less than you earn. And I always laugh at this one because it sounds so obvious, like, duh, spend less than you earn. But Ron Blue makes the point in his book that so many people are going into debt every month and have no idea. And he actually goes through this example, and it's actually pretty shocking. Like, wow, you wouldn't have noticed, or you wouldn't have thought that he uses the example of was going into debt. When he really breaks down the numbers, it's like, wow, they're going into debt every single month. And they didn't know it. So I think it's so easy to spend more than we earn. It's so easy. And so that's why we're getting so fiercely intense and intentional about this, because it's just so easy. Dave Ramsey says you can wander into debt very easily, but it's hard to, you don't wander out. You have to be very intentional about it. So spend less than you earn. Second, pay off all debt. And I do believe it's Ron Blue that started this whole debt snowball concept that Dave Ramsey talks about so much, is starting with the smallest debt. Not the one that has the least amount of interest, which is kind of counterintuitive, but you start with the smallest one because you need to get a win. And we know that in Mary Kay. We know the power of a win. A little baby win can just like give you this energy. It's actually been scientifically proven that our body has a powerful chemical reaction when we think that winning is likely impossible. And so you just got to get that little win, even if it's not the highest interest account. You just mentally have to feel like you're winning and like you can do it and that success is likely and probable. So you just start with the smallest one. And when you pay that off, it's like, woohoo, I can do this. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And so that's the whole debt snowball concept. Third is to build margin. And to building margin is just saving and investing. Number 4 is to set long-term goals, and number 5 is to give generously. And so those are 5 biblical principles on money that is supported by scripture. And so read Ron Blue's book if you want to learn more about that. And so then there's Dave's 7 steps. There's been a little bit of confusion with this because he has 10 videos that outline his steps, but I think there's like 7 steps. And in the 10 videos, you guys that are in the pinned post that you're to watch as a part of this program, he just kind of breaks a couple steps down into multiple videos, but there are actually 7. And so the first one is the emergency fund. So just having $1,000 set aside. Second is paying off debt using debt snowball. Third is having 3 to 6 months of income set aside that you don't touch, and it's for a rainy day, not things, but when something happens. Cash aside. Number 4 is to invest 15% of your take-home pay into a Roth IRA or pre-tax retirement plans. Then you go to college funding. Then you aggressively pay off your mortgage early if possible. And then you're building wealth and giving generously. And I do want to make the point that Dave Ramsey also strongly makes the point that you don't have to wait to give till you're at this level. You can just give more generously once all those other things are done. And so there's a reason, there's an order to these things, and be wise and take an expert's advice and do it in this order. Okay, start with 1, then move on to 2. Don't try to jump around and think you may know better than experts who have studied this and spent their life on teaching people this, but start with step 1. And so again, I want to ask you, where are you? Where are you on the steps? Which one are you giving gazelle intensity, focus, and energy to right now? And is your husband or significant other on the same page as you? Are you both giving that gazelle-like intensity to whatever step that you're at? Okay. Okay, so I do want to do a quick review. I wanted to have my window open so you guys could hear the birds again. It's a little warm in here with the window open. It's a hot day in Ohio. Okay, so I do want to do a little review of the things I post before we go on to really getting kind of nitty gritty with our training. And so here's the feedback I've heard the most is the power of investing. Okay, we gave that example last week of $4.79 a day equals a certain amount you're investing each year, that over your working life, I want to say that amount was $850,000 if I'm just remembering off the top of my head. And then we use the example of the average car loan in America is $483, and if you invested it in an account over your working life, that was like 5.6 million that it would grow to. And the whole point was you don't have to save $1 million to make $1 million because of the power of compounding interest. And just think, $5 a day, you guys, what if that's just where you could start at $5 a day? And what is that per month? 5 times 30, I don't know, $150. Start somewhere with investing. Start somewhere, even if it's like super small, you guys, because the advantage is that it's over time that money is building, and that's how really the compounding interest really becomes very powerful. Okay, so that was a big one that I heard a lot of feedback that people were like, I didn't realize the value of $1. I didn't realize what it could grow to. Okay, another one was and the importance and the value of tithing. And one point I wanted to make that came up a couple times with a couple of different people that we really didn't address last week is that tithing is not giving to a certain group of people or organization. It is truly like giving to God's kingdom. But it's hard to think that way with an organization that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe the leadership is making some choices that you're not on board with, or there can just be stuff when there's people involved. There's just can be complicated, and that can affect our heart and willingness and wanting to give. But remember, regardless of the organization which you're giving to, is that we are called to give anyways. There was no disclaimer put on giving, give only if you approve of your church leadership. We are commanded to do it. And again, it's not even about those people or that organization. It's about just walking in obedience. And what takes place and how your heart transforms when you just walk in obedience, and then the person that you become in the process when you're just choosing to walk in obedience. And so that came up a lot this past week after last week's hangout. And then the gazelle video, that came up a lot, but we've already kind of touched on that for a review. So my goal and vision for if you want to make me really, really happy, here are some things you guys will do and take away is learn to run a healthy Mary Kay business by understanding the 60-40 split, tracking weekly and monthly, and getting organized with your taxes. Okay, I think those are 3 big things that if you own and run a Mary Kay business, understand the 60-40 split, track weekly and monthly, and get your stuff together with taxes. Okay, so that's 1. 2 would be to implement weekly tracking for your personal finances. And we haven't really gotten into that yet, but we're going to. So you're doing it for your business, you're doing it for your personal life. 2. And then 3 would be read your book that you chose and continue to read other books. If everyone on this Pacesetters and was gazelle intense about those things, I could die a happy woman. My life would be complete. But that's kind of my goal and vision. And I really thought this through at the beginning. I'm like, what do I actually want people to do? Okay, because taking in information is one thing, but taking action, you guys, is a whole nother ball game. And we're good at Mary Kay at plugging into Pacesetters and going to events and getting excited and getting motivated and learning and doing training. But then where's the action? And none of that stuff matters unless action is taken. And so when I kind of thought through, what do I actually want people to do? What do I think would make a difference? That's what I came up with. And those would be the things that I believe would be so valuable from today moving forward that you would actually take action on. Okay, so let's kind of get into the things that it takes to run a healthy Mary Kay business. That's 60-40 split, weekly tracking, tax organization, and of course holding parties and selling the product. That goes without saying, right? I hope that goes without saying. But of course doing that and building your customer base, but then what do you do with that money? Okay, so assuming you're actually bringing in money from selling the product at parties or to your customers, whether it's at a high level or a low level, assuming you're bringing money in, what do you actually do with it and how do you keep track of it? That's what we're going to go over. So let's understand the 60-40 split. And I'm going to do some screen sharing here because as I'm talking about this, I want you to see it on the screen. Just in case you don't have it in your workbook right now, I want us all to just be on the same page. So if you do have your workbook, you can go to page You can go to page 18 of your workbook. This is about the 60-40 split for a consultant working the perfect program. Now, in the Unleashed National area and in the Epic family, we have something called the perfect program. and it is our Power Start and Perfect Start program that is basically a focus on working full circle parties at a variety of different levels, either 4 parties a month, 6 parties a month, 8 parties a month, or 12 parties a month. So you may, those of you who are familiar with the perfect program, great. Those of you who are not, I think it's pretty simple to understand that even if you're not working the perfect program, or your unit, your national area does something completely different, I don't think it really matters for this. Okay, so please don't get hung up on the details of like, oh, we don't do the perfect program, so then you mentally check out or think this is not helpful for you. But I'm just using this example that we can all break down parties. You know, I think that's an easy way to look at it. Like, okay, how much money do you want to make? If you need to make this amount, then you need to have this amount of parties. So that's basically all this is doing. And it's a 60-40 split for consultants work. And so here are some levels that you can work. Say, here's a little disclaimer on the 60-40. You guys, I've spent a lot of time looking at this, crunching numbers, spent years understanding and working the 60-40 split. And what I've learned about the 60-40 split is that it's an art, not an exact science. Okay, it is an art, not an exact science. And we are often working with averages. Be your averages. And so especially right now for the C personalities out there who don't really like the arts, they want the exact science to the penny, tell me exactly. Well, that the 60-40 split, it's hard to fit in that box because there's so many variables. When I'm talking to a group of, I think we have 600 people in this group, there's just so many variables. Even in a unit, if you're training directors, if you're training 5 consultants at your unit meeting on the 60-40 split, you've got 5 different situations that impact how the 60-40 split actually is going to play out. Okay? So can we just all understand this, that it's not an art, it is an art, not an exact science. Every consultant and director has variables which will affect these numbers. And some of those variables include your skill level. You guys, some consultants can go to parties and count on $500 in sales, like easy peasy, done and done. Some consultants aren't at that skill level yet, and they're selling less. And so that's a big variable. It's just your skill level in sales. Another big variable is the size of your customer base. What one consultant has to hold 10 parties to sell a certain amount of retail, a more seasoned consultant can sell that in reorders. Okay, so that's another big variable is how big is your customer base? How good has your customer service been? Because that greatly impacts the level of reorder business that you have, which is just easy peasy income. And some people have that and some people don't. Okay, so can we all agree that the 60-40 split is not a science, it is an art, and we're not going to get our panties in a wad about some of these details, but we are going to seek to master and understand it. So let's do that together. So here's just the retail you can expect in the wholesale order that you can expect at each level. So if you have 4 parties, also that's doing 4 career surveys when you're working full circle, you're going to sell 800 retail, which is a $400 wholesale order in 1 month. Now come down here where it says this little asterisk, it says total retail is based on selling an average of 200 per retail per party with 3 people attending. So if you had 3 people there, you'd be selling about $67 per face, which would give you that 200 retail. So those numbers are based on that average. And again, your numbers may not line up like that, but you just got to roll with this and seek to understand and master the concept of 60-40, and then you'll have the opportunity to apply it directly to your situation as you seek to implement and master the 60-40 split in your business, okay? And so down the actual 60 and 40 right now. I'm going to start with the 40. A Mary Kay checking or savings account, or your personal checking. Depending on what you need to do with that 40% profit, or after you do everything else, depends on the level of inventory you have on hand and the financial goals that you have with you. You're going to learn as we go through this. There's just so many different variables. Okay, so we're just seeking to understand and master, know how to implement this. Okay, so this 40% is your profit, what's left over after we take care of the 60% inventory you have on hand, you have for your business and your life. Okay, it can be used for payment and inventory, or paying yourself back if you use savings for inventory. It can be used to reinvest level. And of course, after these things are done, remember, there's always an order things go in. Okay, so after your inventory is paid off and you've built to, of course, personal fund, money, or savings is something that you could use it for. 60% is broken into 50 and 10 to equal 60. The 50 is easy. That's just your reorder. Okay, and we're going to go through examples of that, but you reorder what you sell. Okay, so what if walk their shelves until they were completely sold out and their shelves were bare? They would be out of business literally overnight. Okay, so we are a retail business as well, and so we restock what we sell so that we have, it's your asset. It's the way you make an income. It's the way you make money, is you have that to sell to your customers. Ideally, product on hand to provide the best customer service. So that's what we're doing with the 50% of what we sell, is we're just getting it back on our shelves so we can sell it again and make more profit. 10% of the 60 is used to cover business expenses. Let's talk about business expenses. And let's talk about this 40%. Because some people see 40% and they think, wait a minute, I thought I made a 50% profit. And let me share with you that you do. And all businesses, just not just Mary Kay, all businesses use part of their profit to cover their expenses. There is no business that existed in the history of time that did not have expenses. Okay, just what you need to run your business. Okay, so this is a natural part of the business world. This is a natural part of running a business, is that you have some expenses and you're using part of your profit to cover your expenses. Now, does that make it not profit? No, profit is profit, but profit is used in different ways to run the business. As with every other successful business in the world for the history of time, and Mary Kay is not the exception. Okay, I've seen consultants get their panties in a wad about 10% to cover expenses, and I just don't know what to tell you, but just welcome to real life. Welcome to real life and to business. And you can almost think of it in the same way in your personal life. Okay, you make an income, or let's call it a profit. Like, you go to work, you make a profit. Well, what do you use that profit for, or that income for? You use it to pay your bills and live your life. So you've got living expenses that you use your income or profit for. Does that make, okay, let's say you bring in $1,000 a month and have to use $200 for groceries. Does that make that $200 you're using for groceries not your income or not your profit? No. You're just using part of your income or profit to pay to live. So you do that with your personal life, and we also do this with our business life. It doesn't make it not profit. We are just covering the running of our business with part of that profit. Okay, just wanted to make that point. Okay, so let's go down to the 60%, so 50% to invest. Art, not a, it's a art, not a science. Yeah. This is just an average to give you an idea of what you would need or what expenses that you have. These are some just average numbers for a $600. And so a $600 wholesale order per month means that you're selling 1,200 retail, which is a pretty average number for people who are working very part-time in Mary Kay. And so that's about 120 a month. And so here are an example of expenses. I break the 10% down into 5% and 5%. So 5% to cover your shipping in section 2. And so when you're ordering when you're doing your reorder, 5% of that 10% is in that account to just cover shipping expenses and then supplies that you need. And section 2, about $35 a month, shipping about $25 a month. Okay, then the other 5% is used to cover additional expenses. And what I recommend is that this 5% goes into a separate account, separately, broken away from another checking. So you're gonna have multiple checking accounts here. And they can all be connected to one, like you can have like one Mary Kay checking, but then multiple divisions within that checking. And so you essentially have multiple checking accounts, but it's all under one umbrella. That's how I do it at my bank. And so you've got PCP, so you're putting away $5 a month for that. You've got ProPay, business cards, your website, you're putting away about $10 a month for that, and events, putting away $50 a month for that. So you are essentially taking part of your profit, 5%, and transferring it in so that when PCP rolls around, the cash is sitting in there for PCP, and you use that checking account or that debit card to pay for PCP, and it's sitting in there. When it's time to renew your ProPay or reorder business cards or reinstate your website, you've got that money and cash sitting in the account. When it's time to register for an event, you've got that cash sitting in the account. Okay, and this is just an example. If you were where you're selling about 1,200 retail per month. If you're selling more than that, you are most likely on more section, and so you have a higher amount going towards section because you're in front of more customers. So also, if you're selling more than that, you have more than 20 customers, so you've got more going to PCP. Attending all of the events, not just maybe some of them, and so they've got more money going into that. Okay, so you see how this can change the level of what maybe an average consultant would be doing her expenses in her media business. Okay, so best practice is to have one checking account for your reorder plus 5% expenses, because this is going to go into you're paying for shipping in section 2 in that same transaction. And then a separate checking for the other 5% expenses. Okay? Okay, let's move on to the next page, page 19. And so this breaks down for you. Let's say you're holding one party a week, selling 800 retail. Your 40% is going to be 300. You're going to need about $80 to put aside to cover expenses. And so So this can help you to kind of estimate, like, okay, what level of income would you enjoy or would benefit your family to have from your Mary Kay business? Is it an extra $300 a month? Because if so, holding about one party a week, that extra 40% profit of about $300 a month that you would have to spend on whatever you choose to spend it on. If you need more, holding more parties is going to give you more money. And then the perfect 8, 40 left over on average, and then the perfect 12. Now, I will say these are very conservative numbers. Remember, it's per party. You could easily sell double that per party as you improve your selling skills, and when you're in the target market, and easily sell more than that. So this is a pretty conservative estimate or average per party. Another big thing that benefits this picture here, okay, this doesn't include any reorders. This assumes you have no reorders. But reorders can really start cranking these high when you start establishing a customer base. Another thing that's not factored into your income are commission checks. As you start to sell, you start team building, therefore you're going to start getting commission checks. So that's not even factored in. But I really just, in these examples, to just a straight up, very conservative, here's an example of what the 60-40 split looks like. Nitty gritty, you guys. And I'm going to go through these questions right now that are on page 19. So pay down your investment. And really this is, I should change that little subtitle. It's to like just setting goals. I'm going to take it off screen sharing so you can see my face as I talk through this. But this is the part we're going through right now. Pay down your investment situation on how to do this. Okay, I'm back. And so you can have your workbook in front of you. If you don't, no big deal, because I'm going to actually go through these questions line by line and explain them. This would be a wonderful training to do with your consultants on like a monthly or quarter. Money management and goal setting with their income and their money and their Mary Kay business is always something they're being reminded of. You have to go through this like 10 times before you grasp it and could maybe do it on your own. Maybe. I mean, I know I had to as a consultant. Some of you may be better with numbers and more skilled with this way of thinking, but I really had to like focus on this when I was a consultant and like go through it again. And so directors, just taking these questions a month or once a quarter, taking them to your unit meeting and supporting your consultants and like, okay, let's crunch out your financial situation in your Mary Kay business and let's set some really clear goals. I think it's a big downfall of consultants and directors. It's like you're working your business and you have goals, but it really hasn't been effectively broken down into like dollar amounts of what needs to happen every single week and how long you want to take to reach that goal and when you want to have a full inventory and when you want to pay down your investment. Let's get more clear, because the more clarity, you guys, means the higher level of focus. It means you're more motivated. You're more gazelle intense, which means you're taking different steps and more action, which means you're getting better results, okay? So clarity always leads to good things. Vague plans, vague goals equals vague results, and there's nothing exciting about vague. And so we just want to get really clear. I think the questions in this workbook that I'm going to walk you through can help you to get clear. And I want to encourage you to use your own situation with this, and directors, I want to encourage you to just make this a part of like your curriculum for either new consultant training or just regular seasoned consultant training, that you're always revisiting this. Okay, let's set our money goals again. Let's start breaking this down. Let's figure this out together. And it could even be a coaching conversation you have with someone who has big financial goals. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. Let me actually pull up the workbook because I need to be looking at multiple things at one time here. Okay, here it is. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first, just paying down your initial investment. Okay, so I know not everybody's done that. Not everybody has invested in inventory who's on this. I know a lot of you have already paid it down. And so this may not be like exactly applicable to you, but someday you will have a team member who needs support in this. And so it's important for you to know how to break this down for her. So what's your total investment on a credit card or a loan? I'm just going to use an easy peasy, round, simple number and say $1,000. Let's say you have $1,000 on a credit card that you use to invest in inventory and you want to pay that down. The next question is, when do you want to pay it off? Like 0% or when would be ideal, an ideal time frame for you to have it paid down? So let's use the example of in the next 90 days. So from where we are, April, so May, June, July, you would take those 90 days. So on August 1st, it's going to be paid down. So we are going to pay weekly. And that's my advice for anyone who's paying down an investment for your Mary Kay inventory, is to pay it weekly. That's what I did when I was a brand new consultant. I didn't just wait for the monthly bill. I didn't just pay the minimum. I took my total balance on my credit card, divided it by the weeks, not the months, the weeks. I had it at 0% interest. And then every week I went in on my online banking and I paid that directly out of my Mary Kay checking onto that card and paid it down. That number was so much smaller than the monthly number, and it gave me a very clear what I needed to do. So that's what we're going to do. No more monthly paying stuff. You guys, you're going to pay it weekly, at least for this situation. And so you want to pay it off in 90 days. So you take $1,000 balance on that credit card, divide it by 13 weeks, which is the next 90 days. That equals $77 that you're going to pay weekly. Now, usually we look at 77 and think, okay, I need to sell $77 this week so I can pay that. Well, you can't just sell 77 to be able to do this. You have to sell more than that to be able to do all the things in your business to take care of the business, okay? We don't want to start embezzling and taking away from the business. And so $77 would at least need to be that 40% left over. Okay, remember how that 40% you can do whatever you need to do with it? It would at least need to be just that 40% left over, and then the 60% would be used to reorder and cover your expenses. And then the 77 is that 40% where you're using for whatever you need to use it for. So to do that, so that 77 is the 40%, you would need to sell 102 retail. Half of 192 retail, so 50% is a $96 wholesale order that week. You don't have to do the wholesale every week. You can wait, depending on how much inventory you have on hand. And then $19 would be 10%, and then 40% would be 77. Did you follow that, you guys? And so selling 192 retail would leave you $77 in your account to pay down your investment while still reordering what you're selling and while still putting a little bit of money away. Now, if you want to or need to make a profit, build your inventory because it's not at a full store level, you would need to sell more per week to do that. But bare minimum, just like bare minimum, 192 per week is going to allow you to put $77 per week towards your investment so that in 90 days you're at a balance of 0. Yay. Okay, so how many parties do you need to hold to sell 192 retail so that you can achieve this goal? Now, this depends on your average sales. Some people could do this in reorders. Some people, it would take a facial. Some people, it would take a party. And some people, it might take 1 or 2 parties to do this. But I think 1 to 2 parties would guarantee it for most people if you just worked with averages. 1 to 2 parties a week would, like, you got 190 that week to do what you need to do with it. Okay? And so you can run through this example and through these numbers with any amount of money or investment that you want to pay down. So directors, when can you train your consultants? How can you support them in figuring out how much balance they have, when they want to pay it off, and what they need to sell weekly? Because then, you guys, when you know that you need to hold, let's say you have to hold 1 party a week to be able to do this, and you know in 90 days your investment's going to be paid down. Do you know how motivating that is? It's like, okay, let's do this. I need to hold 1 party a week. So when you're booking, it's not just going through the motions. It's like, I am going to get X amount of bookings so I can hold this amount of parties because I've got a goal I'm working on. I'm so clear on what it takes to achieve that goal. And you know what? I'm going to do some extra training on sales. So when I walk into that party, I know I'm walking out with at least 192 retail so that I can do what I need to do because I've got a goal. Clarity and motivation that adds to your work when it's clear on what you need to do. Okay, so then the other questions in this little section in the workbook, it starts to go into building a full store. So this is, and I really should kind of split those up because one is on paying down investment, the other is on building a store. And so let's kind of transition into that. Let's say you want to build a full, regardless of your level of inventory, whether you have 0 or 2,000, you want to build to a full inventory. And you want to do it over time versus making a 1 lump sum investment. If you can make just like a 1 lump sum, I think that's a great way to do it. That's pretty much, I got 2,400 wholesale, and then about a month and a half later, got another 2,400-ish wholesale. So I had about 5,000 wholesale on my shelf. And then I took that amount, divided it by the weeks, and each week I paid it off. So that's how I did it. Now I know for some people, it's not an option. You have to do it the other way, where you don't have inventory, and each week you're using a part of your profit to build it. So it's kind of like 2 separate ways to have the product on hand. So you start with, how much wholesale do you have on hand? Regardless of the amount. I'm going to use an easy example of 2,000 wholesale. I think on average is about, for a new consultant, that might be a little high. For a seasoned consultant or director, that might be a little low. There were seasons in my business where I had 8,000, 10,000 on hand because I was just cranking out that many parties, and because I had established a big customer base. And so for me to have 4,000 on hand would have been ridiculous because I was moving so much more product than that. So as you're increasing your customer base and amount of parties, a full store for you could be much more than 4,000. And for a new consultant who hasn't established a customer base, maybe between 3,000 and 4,000. But I'm just going to use 4,000 as a pretty average number, an example. And let's say you have 2,000 wholesale on hand. So how much more do you need to build a full store? You need 2,000 more to grow your 2,000 to a $4,000 inventory. When is your goal to have a full store? Like, what's your time frame? And I'm just going to use the random example of by the new year. Let's say by December 31st of 2017, 8 months from now, you want to have a full inventory. So you take 2,000 wholesale divided by 8 months. to figure out the monthly wholesale you would need to order. And that's $250 additional wholesale per month. Okay, so not just a $250 wholesale order, but $250 on top of just your reorder for the products you sold. Does that make sense? So to build, remember we're going from 2,000 to 4,000 over an 8-month time frame. So each month we need to be building at least 250 wholesale, just our reorder for what we sold. And so 50 would need to be that 40% left over. You've got the 50% reorder, got the 10% set aside for expenses, and then you've got the 40% of what's left over that you can choose to do whatever you want with it. Well, you would at least need that 250 to be the 40% left over. And so that would assume you're putting all your profits back into your business to build your inventory. And so to do that, you couldn't just sell 250. To be able to do that, you have to sell more. You actually have to sell $625 retail per month. Half of that is $312.50 for your reorder. 10% is $2.50 going towards your expenses, and then 40% is $250 left over. And so really your wholesale order is that $312, which is half of your retail. So it's really more like a $562.50 reorder. Now, if you need to do more with that 40% than just be able to spend all of it on your reorder, then you need to sell more. So if you need to, let's say you need to pay down an investment too, or maybe there's a certain bill you're planning on you paying and you covering, then you need to sell more so that the $250 can be tacked on to your wholesale order, but then there's still even more left over because you sold more. And then you can do with that money, do with it. Okay? So let's recap that. So if you had 2,000 wholesale on your shelf, you wanted a full store by the new year in 8 months, you need to order an additional 250 wholesale per month for 8 months. At least $625 retail if all you wanted to do was just build your inventory. If that's it. If you need to do more than that, you need to sell more. But if all you wanted to do is just build your inventory, you would need to sell $625 retail per month. Only, you guys, it's only 156 retail per week, which for most people is about 1 party a week. Your situation may be different. Most people can hold 1 party a week and count on bringing that in. Most likely, probably more. Okay, so then you know your goal, 1 party a week, and you need to go into that party and walk out with at least 156 retail. And so then all of a sudden you've got this clarity, you've got this focus, you've got this tracking sheet, you've got intention. You are looking for something very specific as you're booking and as you're holding parties. Okay? So every consultant, I believe every consultant and director, regardless of the level that you're at, should have a goal like this. I just lost my place on my notes. Okay, I found it. Every director and goal should have a plan or a goal similar to this, depending on individual goals and depending on what needs to happen now, what needs to happen in the future. So that's my question. Do you have a goal like this? What is the specific way you want to use your sales? What's the order things need to happen in? That might be an important thing to identify. It's probably paying down the investment, building your inventory, then taking a profit. Let me also say you can do all 3 of those at the same time too. You just need to identify if that 40%, maybe X amount goes towards this, X amount goes towards this, and X amount goes towards this. You could do that too. It just depends on what you need. What do you need your business to be for you right now? And what needs to happen? And if you do not have a goal like this with your profits from your sales, when can you create a goal like this and become very... Now let me speak to some consultants who are really team building and directors, because what comes into play when you really start team building as a consultant and possibly even driving a free car or getting the cash for it, and then as a sales director you have the added benefit and joy of getting a love check. And so then the question becomes, how does that factor into your financial goals? I have heard the advice that directors could possibly use their profit from their sales to cover their expenses. And then their commission check is just take home. And so I want to comment on that because I think it's a great thought. I know a lot of people who do it and are successful with it. I think it's a great way to keep things separate and to have a really clear picture of what you need to sell. But there's some variables that go into it that you would need to consider, decide if this is a plan for you. And one of them are your skills in selling. I know some of you can go kill it with your sales and easily cover every expense, and you feel consistent. That would be a really viable option. But if you are inconsistently in the field, sales directors, so if you're not pretty consistent out there holding at least 2 parties a week minimum, you get yourself into a situation where because you're not in the field consistently, this wouldn't be a good plan for you because you're not in the field consistently. Product every week. And so to set yourself up to pay for all your expenses when really there's not a commitment to consistently be in the field, to put yourself in a weird situation. And so maybe that's the motivation you need to consistently be in the field so that you can cover all your expenses. So you just have to decide that for yourself and determine what you're willing to do and how you would prefer to cover some of the expenses that you have in your business. But being in the field is a big variable. At what level are you committed to doing that? And what are your current level? What's your current skill level when it comes to selling? Another variable is your unit size. It costs more to run a bigger unit. That's just the obvious, let's state the obvious facts. The bigger your unit size, the more expenses that you have. And so again, that's a question you have to ask is, what does it actually take to run my business and my unit? And so then what would I need to sell? And it really boils down to how many parties are you willing to hold per week to make sure you're bringing in the cash that would cover those expenses. So you just need to make a wise, smart decision on what that would actually look like. Because I know a lot of directors hear that, yes, I'm going to pay for all my expenses sales. Okay, let's set that up. Let's do that without really adding up what your total expenses are and what would you actually need to sell to do the 60-40 split and use the 40 what's left over for the expenses. And so I think some people would disagree with me, but I think there's too many variables and moving parts in everybody's individual financial life for me to give a blanket statement to all directors to say, cover your expenses with your sales. That leaves your commission check for you. I can't make that blanket statement that that's actually a wise idea for all directors. You would have to really carefully look at your situation and your level of commitment to being in the field before you can make that situation. So I just wanted to touch on that. Directors, imagine with me for a minute every working consultant in your unit having her own individual plan like this. Like she's got her plan to pay off her inventory, or to build her full store, or to pay her family's mortgage, or to take her family to Disney. Imagine every working consultant in your unit having her own individual plan that she was clear on and that she could work from. Imagine that. Like the power of that, the fun of that, the celebration that would happen from that as you celebrate consultants moving towards these goals and achieving these goals, the clarity everyone would have, the motivation everyone would have to book parties when consultants have these goals and have clarity on these goals. Like how fun would that be? So directors, how can you truly support your unit and your consultants in creating this plan? Okay. Yeah. Directors maybe don't have some of these things, full inventories, investments paid off, and extra fund money. So hard to achieve. You guys, we don't have these things. Full inventories, investments completely paid off to zero, and extra fund money. We don't have them because we don't plan to have them. Okay, they're not hard to achieve, and I hope you heard that in these examples. Both of those examples where one party a week was going to build a full inventory and pay off some of the credit card investment that someone made. Okay, I would guess that most people listening to me or watching this right now are probably willing to have one party a week. Like, I don't think you would have signed up for Master Your Money Pacesetters if there wasn't at least a willingness to do that. And so again, we don't have these things, not because they're hard to have or hard to achieve. We don't have them because we don't plan to have them. So let's start planning to have some of the things that we really truly desire in our business. Okay, let's get more nitty gritty here. And I'm gonna train you on a tool that you can use in your business to actually do the 60-40 split. Is as revolutionary for you as it is for me, and that this is truly, truly supportive. And let me say, if you already have a system that works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you don't have a system, this could be your system. These documents are in the pinned post. You remember our pinned post, you guys? I hope everybody knows what it is, because these two documents I'm going to go over, there are links you can download and actually save. It's an Excel sheet file that you can save on your computer and just use for yourself and use personally. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to recreate it. You don't have to do anything. All the formulas that you need are already in there. You just need to save it on your computer and start using it. So are you ready to check these out? Because I am. So let's do a little bit of screen sharing because I think it makes it easier to actually see it. Present to everyone. Okay, here we are. Let's get exactly lined up. Come on. Okay, here we go. Let me make sure you guys can see what I see. It doesn't look like you're seeing what I see right now. Why not? Oh, okay, got it. I'm doing the wrong one. We will get there. Okay, so this is an Excel spreadsheet that we created for you to use, and this would be used. You would use one page of it every month. Because see, let's scroll down here, you guys. Where is it? What am I trying to do here? Right here. Do you see how there's the months of every year? Let me make sure you can. Yes, you guys can see that. See how all the months are down here? Every month, you would just open that new sheet, and it takes you all the way through 2017. And then in 2018, all you have to do, you don't even have to make a new document, guys. You can just either continue in 2018 and what is already in here. So I just want to make the point that you don't need to recreate this unless you really want to. So all the months are down here. And so for April, you just open up April and log in all of your sales tickets in here. And then when you are done with April, you go to May and you do it on a monthly basis. And there's all the months of the year right there. So let's go through the actual example here. Kate Ritt, customers, she reordered a mascara from me. Okay, so this does examples. Kate, this was an actual real order. The transaction total here, guys, is just the money you collected. Like, what did she give to you? The money you collected, including tax and a possible shipping charge. Charge a shipping, and some don't. That's just a personal decision with how you choose to run your business. And so, like, what did she actually give you in a check or cash or in a credit card? And Kate wrote me a check for $15.97. That was her mascara, her ultimate mascara plus tax. So that was the transaction total. Now, let's figure out the total retail value of that product, including any giveaways that you gave to her and hostess credit that was included. And so for her, this is a really easy one. It was $15. There was no giveaway. There was no hostess credit included. It was just a straight up reorder of a mascara. I gave her an eyeshadow for free for giving me referrals or something. Then, you guys, the total retail would not be 15. It would be 15 plus shadow cost these days. I think so. So that would be, you would add that in there, and that 15 would jump up to 23. Okay, that's the total retail value. And the reason we need to know that is because this affects our reorder amount. Do you see when it was 15, you were reordering $750. Oops, yeah, and then when it was 23, you're reordering, oh, not 2,000. 23, you're reordering $1,150. You're replacing what is leaving your shelf. And so if an eyeshadow is leaving your shelf, regardless of whether you got it for free or not, the eyeshadow. Okay, but you see how you don't even have to think about it? Like, the formulas are there. You just plug in the numbers and then it tells you. So that's your reorder amount, okay? So again, it's the total retail value, including in any hostess credit or giveaway product. Party, and Kate was there with 5 other people. You are entering something for every single sales ticket. Like, every single sales ticket is going in a separate line, and you're just moving down the line with every single one. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Some people group their parties, a more advanced way to do it. So you can do it that way, but I think this is the easiest way. Okay. Retail amount given away for gift cards or a prize or hostess credit. This is for your tax records. I didn't give Kate anything for free. She didn't get anything. It was, she just paid for the mascara. Now let's say I would have given her a $5 discount. Then you would put that in there. You would put that retail amount of what you maybe gave away for a gift card, a prize, or hostess credit. You want to keep of this for your tax records. Okay. Then sales tax collected, 97 cents. Unrecovered, and this is for your tax records. And there was nothing I didn't recover. Now let's say that eyeshadow I would have given her for free, there would have been unrecovered sales tax. Let's say, just for an easy number, 50 cents. Nope, not $50, 50 cents. Then you put that 50 cents in there. You didn't recover that sales tax that you had to pay for that eyeshadow. And so you put that in there for your tax records. And then you've got your 50% reorder amount here. And then it automatically breaks down your 5% for section 2, 5% pulled out to cover your expenses. An ideal practice, as you will see, is to transfer this to a separate account. And it's already done for you. And this is based on the retail value. You guys, 5% of that retail value is that you're keeping that money for shipping in section 2, and then transferring this money to keep an account for expenses. Was it a CDS order, customer delivery service? If no, enter 0. If yes, enter $575. And so it's pulling that expense right off the top because you're paying for it just right there in that transaction. Whereas for your reorder is covering a multitude. Okay, and that money is in here. Whereas if you do a customer delivery service, it's automatically just for one transaction taking that $575 out of your profit right away. Does that make sense? So you have to identify, was it CDS or not? If it wasn't, you just put $575, because then that adjusts everything in the formulas. But for this one, it was 0. And then what is left over is right here. This is the 40% or what's left over. Because sometimes it's an exact 40%. In a situation like this, it's exact, but in other situations, it's not exact. There's other things happening. Like let's say I sent a mascara through CVS. That pulled that $575 out of what's left. Now there's only 25 cents left. I recommend just doing CVS on larger orders. I wouldn't really do it on a mascara because of the amount of shipping that's pulling out of your profit. Okay? So you see how like this is, or what's left over, depending on other things that happened with this transaction. Separate account, or using it to build inventory. And if you're using it to build inventory, you can keep it right in your reorder account where you're paying for your reorder and you've got your 5% in to cover your shipping in section 2. Okay, crystal clear? Clear as mud, right? I hope so. Let's go back to me. Okay, so that was an example of a sheet that you can use. And in my opinion, it does replace weekly accomplishments. I know it's a question I was gonna get, but I want you to touch base with your director, because I don't want to just blanket tell consultants to stop doing weekly accomplishments, because what happens when you and then she can see your numbers, and a lot of times does recognition. That's what I do in my unit. So if you're a consultant in my unit, keep doing weekly accomplishments, because we get the report and then we do recognition, and I send out MK bucks for everybody who reports every 100 retail that they sell. And I just like to do that. So I know it's a little bit redundant. You're doing weekly accomplishments and then you're plugging pretty much all the same information into this Excel spreadsheet. But one thing weekly accomplishments doesn't do is break down your reorder and your expense U40 split for you. But it nicely keeps some very good information in a report that when you need it for taxes to send to your accountant, you've got it all right there. And it's a way your director can see it. So until I come up with a better system for recognizing my unit for their sales, right now I'm just going to have my unit submit weekly accomplishments and then use that Excel spreadsheet for your own money management and mental. Now, the reason I included all the giveaway stuff and the hostess credit and the unrecovered sales tax is that if you did want to replace weekly accomplishments with this Excel spreadsheet, you could. You could email the Excel spreadsheet to your accountant at the end of the year, your monthly totals for everything he would need to know. How awesome is that? But consultants check with your director on how she wants to do that, because it's up to her as your leader to make that call. One thing I didn't really highlight that I'm going to highlight in the next one, and I want to make sure I'm covering everything that I really want to cover. It is ideal that these transactions happen once a month, okay? So at the bottom of this spreadsheet and another one I'm about to show you are totals. So let's say for the whole month of April, you're selling, you're entering in your transactions, so per sales ticket. So every sales ticket gets a line, you're entering it in. At the end of the month, when it comes April 30th, you look at all your totals, and it has it all broken down. Here's what your reorder should be. Here's the amount you should move over into another account to cover future expenses that you're going to have, like PCP and your website and ProPay and all that, and events. So you transfer that to a separate account, and then it shows you the 40% or what's left over that, again, you're using in whatever way you need to based on your individual plan and goals. All those totals there, so you don't have to like figure it out. So then you log into InTouch, you know exactly the wholesale amount you need to reorder to replace the products that you have. You know how much shipping is going to cost. Tax is something we just left in the account to use for tax in the next order. Like, it's all just really clear. You don't have to guess. You don't have to hope. You don't have to wonder. It's just you've got all the totals down there at the bottom, and then you just move the money where it needs to be moved based on your individual plan and goals. How sweet is that? Now, ideally, in my opinion, this happens once a month because you're reordering once a month for what you sold. Now, for people who don't have a full store, you're ordering many, many more times than once a month. And so it kind of changes the picture. And so you are just, you're having to look at this multiple times, but you can still see your totals. When it's time to reorder, you just look at the transactions that have gone in so far and your base totals every time you need to reorder. Does that make sense? You would, when it comes time to for your reorders, when you actually need to look at those totals, or when it comes time to move money from different accounts is when you need to look at those totals based on all the transactions that have gone in. Another thing I want to say is that be patient with this. Give it time. First time you try it, it's probably going to be frustrating, and you're probably going to have some questions, or there might be just weird situations that come up and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. So just be patient with it. Like anything new, or a new skill that you're learning, it takes some time to get used to it, and then eventually you're just going to be plugging it in there like a math wizard, and it's going to make sense and it's all going to be clear. But you just got to practice it. So that's why it's on your voucher for this week, to actually download the link, save the Excel spreadsheet on your computer, and to actually plug in all your transactions for the month of April if you choose to, or just for this week, I think is what you get voucher credit for. And so try it, practice it. Sales directors, go through it at your meeting, train on this, equip your consultants to really use this so that what can often be so confusing, like the numbers and the reorder and the amounts and the math you have to do to figure it all out, what can be confusing, Sheet makes very clear and very, very simple, and helps you feel very business and financially savvy, because you can use this to figure out your numbers. Okay. We're running out of time. Okay. Let's screen share one more thing very quickly. It's almost an exact replica of what I just showed you, but it is for ProPay. Let's make sure you guys can see what I am seeing here. Okay, I think you can. Yep. Okay, you should see JC and Maggie. These are two more examples of real live orders that I had from customers. From JC, her transaction total, she wrote, no. She gave me a credit card. That's why we're in the ProPay one. This is just for your ProPay transactions, because this is where things can get a little bit muddy when it comes to your reorder is ProPay. It really muddies the waters. So we're gonna clear the muddy waters with this spreadsheet. So anytime you use a credit card, you're gonna put the transaction here. So JC, I charged her credit card in ProPay. So this number is the transaction total. So the money collected plus tax, plus any possible shipping charges you might charge your customers, minus ProPay. Okay, did everyone hear me? Minus your ProPay fees. So this number is not the actual number on your sales ticket. It is the number after the ProPay fee comes out. So we're just taking it off the top. Okay, so you actually have to wait till like ProPay clears. Actually, they tell you the fee up front, right when you process it. So you can know that number right away. So $86.12 is what I collected from her after ProPay fees. Total retail value of her products was $107. Sales ticket. I just added up the total products I gave her in the retail value. The reason I collected less than the retail value is because of this right here. I gave her a $25 gift card for coming to my meeting with me, which is why the retail value is higher than what I collected. Okay, so it chipped a little bit away from my profit because I gave her that gift card of $25 retail value. Tax I collected is here. I didn't, unrecovered tax was nothing because I taxed her on the full retail. I taxed her on 107. And so there wasn't any tax I didn't recover because I taxed her on 107, okay? Here is my reorder amount based on the retail value of the product. So not based on this, but based on, so not based on the transaction total, but based on the total retail value. So I've got my reorder amount, I've got my 5% and 5%. It was not a customer delivery service order. And then here's what's left over. Okay, here's Maggie. And I made a little note here because I wanted to show you guys the ProPay fee was $2.35 and I did not charge her shipping. So you can make little notes to kind of remind yourself if you want to have little notes like that. So transaction total was $72.33 after ProPay. Retail value of the product, $68. I gave her nothing for free. She just straight up paid for the products. I collected this in tax. There was no unrecovered sales tax. My reorder amount is exactly half of the retail value. And then I've got my expenses pulled out. And this was a customer deliver. So that's pulling that number out of, it's pulling that number out of this number right here. And you see where I put 31% profit? So the reason it was 31% profit instead of 40 is because of this right here. The customer delivery service took about 9% of my profit away for this specific order. The bigger the order, the less percentage it's taking. Could be 5. Okay, so you guys see that? So 31% profit, and that's what I have left over to do whatever I need to do to reach the goals that I have, depending on what those are. Okay, now I'm back. Okay, we have 6 minutes left. Let's see if I can tackle what I want to tackle. I'm just going to go for it. We're going to just talk fast. Yeah, we covered it. Okay, we pretty much covered this 60-40 and how to use those worksheets or those Excel spreadsheets. Now I'm going to talk about weekly tracking. Okay, I'm going to say this in less time than I want to, but we're going to do it. And now I'm sort of switching from your business to your personal. Okay. Remember when I had my like crossroads in the conversation with Pam Shaw and I started printing these transaction or these bank statements every month, and I've done that every month since July 2009. another thing I've done is weekly tracking in certain personal spending categories. Now, when I say weekly tracking in your business, what I mean is like the 60-40 split, entering in your, doing that. So that's weekly tracking in your business. Weekly tracking in your personal life is picking a few categories that you want to track and tracking them weekly. Pretty simple, right? And I think it's important to do it weekly to review your goals and review the spending that's happened that week. Not in every category, okay? You do not need to do, I'm recommending like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 categories, like just a handful. Not in every category because it's just unnecessary. I would guess your mortgage is the same every month. You don't really need to review that each week because it's just the same and you know what it is and it happens on a monthly basis. Now, there are other categories that fluctuate a little bit. So for us, over the years, but right now, what I weekly track is groceries and dining and entertainment, because those are the 2 categories that I feel like can fluctuate the most and that we can easily overspend. Have you ever noticed that? Groceries and dining and entertainment. You can just easily spend a lot in those categories, and they're kind of easier to control. Like, you can say no to them. You can your utility bill this month, but you can say no to certain dining and entertainment. So you have more control over those. And so pick your categories. What would they be? Again, ours is groceries and dining and entertainment. So every week, I call it Money Monday. I pull up my checking account and I just review the spending from the last week. I've done it both ways. I've done it on an Excel spreadsheet and I've kept track of it. And I've just done it on a piece of paper with a pen. Right now I have a binder that I'm using. It's this leather bound thing. And there's always like an empty page for me to just jot down notes and kind of just put down important information. That's where I put it. I just add it up for that week. And then I update Cliff on what it was so he knows. And so weekly I'm looking at like, okay, what did we spend? And then are we on track for the goal that we have, or the budget that we have? And you would not believe how helpful that is. It's like so super helpful. And you can't do it once a month, you guys. You can't do it once a month because it's too much time that's gone by. By the time a month's gone by, you're like, I don't even remember that. Like, what was that? Where did we go? What did I eat? What happened? And then you really start questioning, like, is that a real transaction? Have you ever done that? Like, where you look at a transaction that happens in your checking account, you're like, I didn't spend that. Like, where did that come from? And you like call your bank and they give you more information. And you're like, oh yeah, I did spend that. I forgot. And so that's happened to me more times than I want to admit, but you just forget. You forget things. And so that's why you do it on a weekly basis. And it just helps to keep you focused and aware. Because if you just had blew it up that week and like did a lot of dining and entertainment, you're like, crap, I didn't mean to spend that much. And then the next week you're aware of it. So you're like, you know what, let's say no to this and that, or do this and that, or eat at home tonight because we blew it up last week. Okay, so if you would have waited a month to look at it, you didn't know you blew it up last week because you never added it up and you didn't realize how much you spent. And so that's why on a weekly basis, it's good to look at it just for awareness. You guys, awareness is a beautiful thing. Awareness leads to different choices, which leads to creating different habits, which leads to different results, different and better results. And so you want to have an awareness. So that's why we do it weekly. I call it Money Monday. And so I vox Cliff after I do it. I say, Happy Money Monday, smiley face emoji. And I say, here's what we spent here, here's what we spent here, and that's it. And just so he's kind of in the know, I'm on the same page, and we just know what's going on in 2 categories we can control pretty well that are easy to overspend in. Some people do Financial Fridays or, you know, whatever. Do it whatever day of the week that makes the most sense for you. And so yep, I covered that. Now, I will say Dave Ramsey's system that he teaches is probably the most effective. We've gone through seasons of doing the envelope system, where you actually decide, I'm going to spend X amount of money on groceries this week. And so at the beginning of the month, you go to the bank, you pull out that money in cash, you stick it in an envelope, and you take it to the grocery store. And you can't spend more than that amount that you designated. Okay, that is a very powerful way. Through seasons of using the envelope system. And if you're really in a place where you need to be gazelle intense beast mode about your financial life right now, cash, hands down, best way to do it. You don't have to do cash for everything. And that's what I kind of got confused on. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have like 50 envelopes spread out on my kitchen table with like cash in each of them. No, you just pick a couple categories that are the easiest to overspend in, that you can control the most, and you break out those envelopes. It doesn't have to be for every category of spending. That would be ridiculous. So that would be most effective. Okay, whew, guys, we made it. It's 2:01. 2:01, and I got through it. There is a voucher points you can earn this week for implementing your weekly tracking. So what can you do? What day can you do it on? Do you need to use an Excel spreadsheet? Do you have a notebook that maybe you could keep track of it? How are you going to communicate it to your husband? What categories are you going to track? What accounts do you need to look up? Because it might be multiple different accounts that you're needing to look up every Monday, or Financial Friday. And so that's your goal and little task this week, is to implement some kind of weekly tracking in your personal life, and then start using these Excel spreadsheets, which are your weekly tracking for your Mary Kay business. All right, you guys, I caught us up for the most part. And I'm really happy about that. So next week, we will tackle our final hangout and cover taxes and some other really exciting topics. Okay, have a blessed week, you guys.